Marcus sat in the back corner of the community center. His legs were too short to touch the floor. They swung back and forth as he watched the men on stage. The old metal chair was cold under his thin jeans. He had been sitting there for more than an hour now. The boy's eyes never left the stage. 4 men were trying to make music together. There was Ray on the saxophone. His silver hair caught the bright lights above. Next to him stood Tommy with his big bass guitar. The strings made deep sounds when he plucked them. Behind them both was Mike on the drums. His sticks moved fast, but something was wrong with the music. Marcus knew what was missing. The black piano sat alone at the side of the stage. No one was playing it. The piano bench was empty. Without piano, the music sounded broken. Like a car with only 3 wheels. The men stopped playing. Ray wiped his forehead with a white cloth. "This isn't working," he said to the others. His voice carried across the empty room to where Marcus sat. "We sound terrible without James." James was their piano player. Marcus had seen him here before. James had long fingers that danced across the keys. But James was sick today. He had called Ray that morning to say he could not come to practice. "What are we going to do about Saturday?" Tommy asked. He leaned his bass against the wall. Saturday was when they had their big show. People from all over town would come to hear them play. "I don't know," Ray said. He put his saxophone down on its stand. "Maybe we should cancel." Marcus felt his heart sink. He loved coming here to listen. His grandmother brought him every Tuesday and Thursday. She cleaned the offices upstairs while the band practiced down here. Marcus was supposed to sit quietly and do his homework, but he never did homework. He only watched and listened. The music these men made was like magic. It was different from the songs on the radio. It was different from the music at church. This was jazz music. It moved and changed like it was alive. Sometimes it was slow and sad. Sometimes it was fast and happy. But it was always beautiful. Marcus had been coming here for 6 months now. He knew all their songs. He knew when Ray would play his long solos. He knew when Tommy would make his bass sing. He knew when Mike would make the drums dance. And he knew exactly when the piano should come in. At home, Marcus had an old keyboard. His grandmother had bought it at a yard sale for $10. Half the keys stuck and it only worked sometimes. But Marcus practiced on it every day. He tried to play the songs he heard at the community center. His grandmother had taught him to read music. She used to play piano at their church. Her fingers were old and stiff now, but she still remembered the songs. She showed Marcus how to put his hands on the keys. She taught him about timing and rhythm. "Music is in your soul," she always told him. "You can't learn soul from a book. You either have it or you don't." Marcus thought he might have soul. When he played the broken keyboard at home, something felt right. The music made sense to him. It was like speaking a language he was born knowing. But he had never played with other people. He had never played a real piano. The one on stage looked perfect. Its black surface shined under the lights. Marcus wondered what it would feel like to touch those keys. The men on stage were packing up their instruments. Ray looked tired and worried. This band was his life. He had been playing music for 40 years. The Saturday show was important. Many people were coming to hear them. "Maybe we can find someone else," Mike said. He put his drumsticks in a bag. "By Saturday?" Ray shook his head. "Good piano players don't just appear out of nowhere." Marcus felt something stirring in his chest. His heart was beating faster. He knew he could help them. He had learned all their songs. He practiced them every day on his broken keyboard. But he was just a kid. Would they even listen to him? The boy looked around the empty room. His grandmother was still upstairs cleaning. She would not be done for another hour. That gave him time to think. Marcus had always been shy. At school, he sat in the back of the class. He did not raise his hand much. Other kids sometimes made fun of his old clothes. They teased him because he was small for his age. It was easier to stay quiet and invisible, but music was different. When Marcus thought about music, he felt brave. Music was the one thing he was good at. the one thing that made him feel special. He watched Ray pack up his saxophone. The man looked so sad. Marcus could not bear to see the band give up. These men made beautiful music. They deserved to play their Saturday show. The community center was quiet now. Only the sound of instruments being put away filled the air. Soon the men would leave. The piano would sit alone on the empty stage, and Saturday's show would be canceled. Marcus made a decision. His legs stopped swinging. He put his hands on the sides of his chair. Slowly, he stood up. The metal chair made a small screech as it moved. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Ray looked up from his saxophone case. He saw the small boy standing in the back. "You okay there, son?" Ray called out. "Your grandmother will be down soon." Marcus nodded, but he did not sit back down. Instead, he took a step forward, then another step. His worn sneakers made soft sounds on the floor as he walked toward the stage. With each step, his heart beat faster. What was he doing? These were grown men, real musicians. What could a 12-year-old boy possibly offer them? But something inside him kept pushing forward. Maybe it was the music in his soul. Maybe it was the memory of his grandmother's words. Or maybe it was just the thought of that beautiful piano sitting silent and alone. Marcus reached the front of the room. The stage seemed very high from where he stood. The men were all looking at him now. Ray, Tommy, and Mike. 3 pairs of adult eyes focused on one small boy. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His throat felt dry. His hands were shaking a little bit. What if they laughed at him? What if they told him to go sit down and be quiet? What if they called his grandmother and got him in trouble? But then Marcus thought about Saturday. He thought about all the people who would not get to hear beautiful music. He thought about Ray's sad face. And he thought about the piano that needed someone to play it. The boy took a deep breath. He looked up at Ray with the biggest, most hopeful eyes the man had ever seen, and Marcus finally found his voice. Marcus cleared his throat. The sound was small in the big room. "Excuse me, sir," he said. His voice came out higher than he wanted. It cracked a little bit on the word sir. Ray stopped putting his saxophone away. He looked down at the boy with surprise. "Yes, son? What is it?" Marcus felt his face getting hot. All 3 men were staring at him now. Tommy had stopped coiling up his bass cord. Mike was holding his drumsticks in the air. The whole room was quiet, except for the buzzing of the lights above. "I heard you talking," Marcus said. He swallowed hard. "About Saturday, about not having a piano player." Ray nodded slowly. "That's right. Our regular player is sick. We might have to cancel our show." Marcus felt his heart hammering in his chest. This was it. This was the moment he had to be brave. He thought about his grandmother upstairs. She always told him to speak up for what he believed in. Could I, maybe? Marcus started, then stopped. The words felt too big for his mouth, too scary to say out loud. "Could you what, son?" Ray asked. His voice was kind but puzzled. Marcus looked at the piano. Its black keys seemed to be calling to him. He imagined sitting on that bench. He imagined his fingers on those perfect keys. He imagined making music with these men. "Could I maybe try playing with you?" The words rushed out all at once, like water bursting from a dam. The room got even quieter. Ray blinked several times. Tommy's mouth fell open a little bit. Mike set his drumsticks down very slowly. Marcus immediately wanted to take the words back. What had he done? These were serious musicians. He was just a kid with a broken keyboard at home. Why did he think he could play with them? "You want to play piano with us?" Ray asked. He did not sound mean, but he did not sound excited either. He sounded confused. "I know it sounds crazy," Marcus said quickly. The words tumbled out faster now. "I know I'm just a kid, but I've been listening to you play for months. I know your songs. I practice them at home on my keyboard." Ray looked at Tommy and Mike. The 3 men shared a look that Marcus could not read. Were they angry? Were they going to tell him to go away? "Son," Ray said gently, "this is very nice of you to offer, but we play jazz music. Real jazz. It's very complicated. Marcus felt his shoulders slump. Of course they would say no, what was he thinking? But then he remembered something. Last week his grandmother had played an old record for him. It was a famous jazz pianist named Oscar Peterson. She told Marcus that Oscar started playing when he was very young too. I know about jazz, Marcus said. His voice was stronger now. My grandmother taught me. She used to play at church and in clubs. She showed me about chords and timing and improvisation. Tommy raised his eyebrows. Improvisation? You know what that means? Marcus nodded eagerly. It's when you make up music as you go. When you take a song and make it your own. When you let your feelings come through your fingers. Mike laughed, but not in a mean way. Kids got the vocabulary down at least. Ray was still looking at Marcus carefully. What songs do you know? Real jazz songs, I mean. Marcus felt a flutter of hope. They were not telling him to go away, they were asking questions. I know Autumn Leaves, he said, and Blue Moon, and Take 5. That one's hard because it's in 5/4 time instead of 4/4. Now all three men looked surprised. Ray's eyebrows went up high on his forehead. You know about time signatures? Tommy asked. My grandmother taught me, Marcus said again. She said music is like math. You have to count the beats, but you also have to feel them. Ray put his saxophone case down completely. He walked to the edge of the stage and crouched down. Now he was closer to Marcus's eye level. How old are you, son? 12, Marcus said. I'll be 13 next month. And you really think you can play jazz piano with us? Marcus felt his confidence wobbling again. When Ray said it like that, it did sound impossible. But he thought about all those hours practicing at home, all those times he played along with the music in his head, all those dreams of making music with other people. I don't know if I'm good enough, Marcus said honestly. But I really want to try. And you need a piano player for Saturday. Ray studied the boy's face. Marcus tried to look as serious and mature as possible. He stood up straighter. He looked Ray right in the eyes. What's your name, son? Marcus. Marcus Johnson. Well, Marcus Johnson, Ray said. I appreciate the offer, I really do. But this isn't easy music. We're not talking about chopsticks or Mary Had a Little Lamb. I know, Marcus said. I've been listening to you practice. I know Summertime, and All of Me, and Girl from Ipanema. I know the chord changes. I practice them every day. Mike was shaking his head, but he was smiling. This kid is something else. Tommy unplugged his bass and set it aside. Ray, what's the harm in letting him try? We've got nothing to lose. Ray looked back at his bandmates. Then he looked at Marcus again. The boy's eyes were bright with hope and determination. There was something about him that reminded Ray of himself at that age. The hunger for music. The need to play. You know what, Marcus? Ray said finally. Maybe we are being too quick to give up. Marcus felt his heart leap. Does that mean? It means, Ray said, standing up to his full height, that maybe we should see what you can do. But I want to be clear about something. This is not a game. If you're going to play with us, you have to be serious. You have to be professional. I can be professional, Marcus said quickly. I promise. Ray looked at the piano sitting silent on the stage. Then he looked back at Marcus. All right, but we're going to start simple. And if it doesn't work out, you're not going to argue or make a fuss, deal? Marcus nodded so hard his head hurt. Deal. Tommy, Mike, Ray called to his bandmates. What do you think? Should we give the kid a chance? Tommy shrugged. Why not? Like I said, what's the harm? Mike picked up his drumsticks again. Could be interesting. I've never played with a 12-year-old before. Ray turned back to Marcus. Okay, son. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pick one song. Something simple. If you can play it. With us. Really play it. Not just poke at the keys, then maybe we'll talk about Saturday. Marcus felt like he might faint from excitement. They were going to let him try. Really try. What song? He asked. Ray thought for a moment. Autumn Leaves. You said you know it. We'll play it in the key of G. Nice and slow. Think you can handle that? Marcus knew Autumn Leaves like he knew his own name. He had played it 100 times on his broken keyboard. He had hummed it walking to school. He had dreamed about it at night. "Yes, sir," he said. "I can handle that." Ray smiled for the first time since Marcus had approached them. "All right then, let's see what you've got. But first, let me ask you something." "What? Does your grandmother know you're down here asking to play with us?" Marcus felt his face get hot again. "Not exactly." "Well," Ray said, "I think we better go get her. If we're going to let you try this, she needs to know about it." Marcus's eyes got wide. He had not thought about that. What would his grandmother say? Would she be proud? Would she be angry? Would she think he was being foolish? "Don't worry," Ray said, seeing the boy's expression. "If you're half as good as you think you are, I have a feeling she's going to be very proud." Marcus hoped Ray was right, because there was no turning back now. In just a few minutes, he was going to sit at that beautiful piano. He was going to try to make music with real musicians. His dream was about to come true, or it was about to become his worst nightmare. Only one way to find out. Ray climbed the stairs to find Marcus's grandmother. His footsteps echoed in the empty stairwell. Marcus waited by the stage with Tommy and Mike. His hands were sweating now. What if his grandmother said no? What if she was embarrassed by what he had done? "So, kid," Tommy said, sitting down on the edge of the stage, "how long have you really been playing?" "Since I was 6, Marcus said. "My grandmother started teaching me when my mom got deployed." "Your mom's in the military?" Mike asked. Marcus nodded. "Army. She's been gone for 8 months now. She'll be back at Christmas." Tommy and Mike exchanged a look. They both had kids at home. They knew how hard it must be for Marcus with his mother away. "That's tough, little man," Tommy said, gently, "but it sounds like your grandmother is taking good care of you." "She's the best," Marcus said. His voice was full of love when he talked about her. "She knows everything about music. She played with some famous people back in the day." "Like who?" Mike asked. He was genuinely curious now. "She played backup piano for Etta James once, and she opened for B.B. King at a club in Memphis. That was before I was born, though." Mike whistled low. "No kidding? Your grandmother played with Etta James?" Marcus beamed with pride. "She still has the poster from that show. It's hanging in our kitchen." Tommy was impressed. "Sounds like music runs in your family." "Grandmother says it's in our blood," Marcus said. "She says my great-grandfather played piano too, but I never met him." They heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Ray appeared first, followed by a woman in her 60s. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a cleaning uniform with community center embroidered on the shirt. This was Eleanor Johnson, Marcus's grandmother. She looked worried as she walked toward them. "Marcus Anthony Johnson," she said, in a voice that made Marcus stand up, straighter. "What's this about you wanting to play piano with these gentlemen?" Marcus felt small under her gaze. When his grandmother used his full name like that, it usually meant trouble. "I just asked if I could try, grandmother," he said quietly. "They need a piano player for Saturday." Eleanor looked at Ray. "Mr. Williams, I hope my grandson hasn't been bothering you. He can get carried away when it comes to music." Ray held up his hand. "Not at all, Mrs. Johnson. Actually, he's been very polite and very determined." Eleanor sighed. "That boy and his music. He practices on that old keyboard for hours every day. Drives the neighbors crazy sometimes." "He says you taught him," Tommy said. "He says you used to play professionally." Eleanor's cheeks turned slightly pink. "That was a long time ago. Different world back then." "Marcus mentioned you played with Etta James," Mike said. "That's pretty impressive." Eleanor's eyes lit up a little. "Just once. I was so nervous I could barely play. But Etta was kind to me. She said I had good hands." Ray was watching this conversation with interest. The more he learned about Marcus's background, the more curious he became about the boy's abilities. Mrs. Johnson, Ray said, your grandson seems to think he can play jazz piano with us. He says he knows our songs. Eleanor looked at Marcus with a mixture of pride and concern. He does practice your music. I hear him trying to play along when you practice down here. But Mr. Williams, these are grown men, professional musicians. Marcus is just a child. I know, Ray said, but he's very insistent, and we are in a bind for Saturday. Eleanor frowned. You're not seriously considering letting him play with you? Ray rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Well, that depends. How good is he really? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Marcus, who was holding his breath waiting for her answer. He's good, she said finally. Better than I was at his age. Maybe better than I ever was. But good enough to play with you, I don't know. Can we find out? Ray asked. Would you let him try one song with us? Just to see? Eleanor looked around at the three men. They all seemed genuine, not like they were making fun of Marcus or trying to embarrass him. I suppose one song wouldn't hurt, she said slowly. But Marcus, you listen to me. These men are doing you a favor. You be respectful, you do your best, and if they say you're not ready, you accept that like a gentleman, understood? Yes, ma'am, Marcus said. His heart was racing again. Eleanor turned to Ray. And you, Mr. Williams, please be gentle with him. He's just a boy with big dreams. Ray nodded seriously. I understand, Mrs. Johnson. We'll take good care of him. Tommy had been quiet during this exchange. Now he spoke up. What song are we thinking? Autumn Leaves, Ray said. Key of G. Nice and slow. Eleanor raised her eyebrows. That's not an easy song. Marcus says he knows it, Ray said. Eleanor looked at her grandson. Do you really know it, all the chord changes? Marcus nodded eagerly. G major, C major, F sharp half diminished, B7, E minor, A minor, D7, back to G. I know the whole progression. All four adults stared at him. Even Eleanor looked surprised. Ray whistled softly. Okay. Maybe this kid does know what he's talking about. Don't get too excited yet, Eleanor warned. Knowing the chords and playing them are two different things. Mike sat up behind his drum kit. Only one way to find out. Tommy picked up his bass and plugged it in. This should be interesting. Ray got his saxophone ready. All right, Marcus. Let's see what you've got. Marcus walked toward the piano. Each step felt like it took forever. The piano bench looked very big when he reached it. He climbed up and adjusted his position the way his grandmother had taught him. The keys felt smooth and cool under his fingers. This piano was so much better than his keyboard at home. Each key responded perfectly to his touch. The sound was rich and full. Take your time, Ray said. Get comfortable. Marcus put his hands in position. His left hand found the G chord. His right hand rested lightly on the keys. He took a deep breath. Remember, Eleanor called from where she stood watching. Posture straight, shoulders relaxed, let the music flow. Marcus nodded. He had heard these instructions 1,000 times. Ray raised his saxophone to his lips. We'll start with you, Marcus. Just play the melody once through, then we'll all come in together. Ready? Marcus felt the weight of all their eyes on him. Ray, Tommy, Mike, and his grandmother. 4 people waiting to hear what he could do. His mouth felt dry. His palms were sweating. What if he messed up? What if he forgot the chords? What if he embarrassed himself and his grandmother? But then he remembered why he was here. The music. The beautiful music these men made. The chance to be part of something special. Marcus pressed the first key. The note rang out clear and true in the quiet room. G. The beginning of Autumn Leaves. He started to play the melody. Slowly at first, then with more confidence as his fingers remembered what to do. The music came naturally to him like breathing. Behind him, he heard his grandmother gasp softly. She had heard him play this song at home many times, but never like this. Never with such feeling and maturity. Ray was nodding along with the rhythm. Tommy was quietly fingering the bass line on his unplugged instrument. Mike was tapping his foot. Marcus reached the end of the melody. The last note faded away in the quiet room. "Well," Ray said after a moment. "That was—" He paused, looking for the right word. "Impressive," he finished. "Very impressive." But Marcus could hear something else in Ray's voice. Doubt. The man was being polite, but he wasn't convinced. "It's a nice start," Ray continued carefully. "But son, playing the melody is just the beginning. Can you play it with us? Can you keep up when we start improvising? Can you comp behind my solos?" Marcus felt his confidence wavering. Comping meant playing background chords while other people soloed. It was much harder than just playing the melody. "I think I can," Marcus said, but his voice was smaller now. Ray looked at Tommy and Mike. Then he looked at Eleanor. "Mrs. Johnson, I don't want to hurt your grandson's feelings. He plays the melody beautifully. But what we do, it's very complex. I'm not sure he's ready for it." Eleanor nodded sadly. She had been afraid of this. Marcus was talented, but he was still just a child. Marcus felt tears starting in his eyes. He had been so close. For a moment, he had really thought they might let him play with them. "However," Ray said, and Marcus looked up hopefully, "I think we should try it anyway." Everyone looked surprised, including Ray's bandmates. Ray, Tommy, said quietly, "Are you sure about this?" Ray was looking at Marcus with new interest. There was something about the way he played that melody. Something mature. Something real. "I want to hear more." Marcus felt hope flooding back into his chest. "But," Ray continued, holding up a finger, "if it doesn't work, if you can't keep up, we stop. No arguments. Deal?" Marcus nodded quickly. "Deal." Eleanor looked worried, but she nodded too. "One song, that's all." Ray smiled and raised his saxophone again. "All right then, let's make some music." Marcus adjusted his position on the piano bench one more time. His feet barely touched the floor, even sitting up straight. He looked down at the keys, then up at Ray, who was holding his saxophone ready. "Okay, Marcus," Ray said gently. "We're going to play Autumn Leaves together now. I want you to start with the chords, just simple block chords to keep the harmony going. Don't try to get fancy. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded, though his throat felt tight. Block chords were basic. Just playing all the notes of each chord at the same time, he could do that. At least he hoped he could. "Tommy will come in with the bass line," Ray continued. "Then Mike on drums. I'll play the melody first time through. After that, we'll see what happens. Sound good?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said. His voice came out as barely a whisper. Eleanor moved, closer, but she stayed off to the side where she wouldn't be in the way. Her hands were clasped together tightly. She was as nervous as Marcus was. Ray counted them in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Marcus pressed down on the G major chord. The sound filled the room, rich and warm. It was so much better than his keyboard at home. Each note was clear and perfect. He moved to the next chord in the progression. C major. His fingers found the keys automatically, like they had done this 1,000 times before. In a way they had. Just not on a piano this good. Tommy's bass joined in, walking along the bottom of the chords Marcus was playing. The deep notes blended perfectly with the piano. Marcus felt a thrill run through him. This was what he had been dreaming of. Playing with other musicians. Mike came in next with a gentle brush rhythm on the drums. Not loud or flashy, just a soft whisper that held everything together. The three instruments created a foundation of sound that seemed to float in the air. Then Ray began to play the melody. His saxophone sang the familiar tune of Autumn Leaves. The notes danced over the chords Marcus was providing. It was beautiful. More beautiful than Marcus had ever imagined it could be. Marcus found himself smiling as he played. This was working. He was actually doing it, playing jazz with real musicians. The chords were coming naturally to his fingers. He didn't have to think about them anymore. Ray finished the first statement of the melody. Now came the test. Would they keep going? Would Ray try to improvise? Would Marcus be able to keep up? Ray caught Marcus's eye and nodded. Then he started, playing the melody again, but this time he changed it. He added little decorations and variations. He was starting to improvise. Marcus kept playing his chords steadily. He listened carefully to what Ray was doing and tried to support it with his harmony. When Ray played higher notes, Marcus made his chords a little softer. When Ray got more intense, Marcus played with more energy. Behind him, Tommy and Mike were locked in tight. The bass and drums were like a heartbeat, steady and strong. Marcus had never felt anything like this before. It was like being part of something bigger than himself. Ray's solo was getting more adventurous now. He was playing long, flowing lines that twisted and turned around the chord changes. Marcus had to concentrate hard to keep up. The chords were changing every 2 beats now, faster than he was used to. F sharp, half diminished to B7 to E minor. The progression was getting tricky. Marcus's left hand moved quickly to find each new chord. His right hand added some simple notes to fill out the harmony. He was sweating a little now, but it was good sweat. The sweat of concentration and effort. He was working hard, but the music was working too. Everything was fitting together like pieces of a puzzle. Ray finished his improvisation and nodded to Tommy. Now it was the bass player's turn to solo. Tommy stepped forward a little and began playing a walking bass line that was more melodic than before. Marcus had never played behind a bass solo before. He wasn't sure what to do. Should he keep playing chords? Should he play softer? Should he play different chords? He looked at Mike, who was smiling and nodding encouragingly. The drummer mouthed the word "listen" to Marcus, so Marcus listened. He listened to what Tommy was playing and tried to support it. When Tommy played low notes, Marcus played his chords higher on the piano. When Tommy played something bluesy, Marcus added a little blues to his chords too. Eleanor was watching from the side with her mouth slightly open. She had taught Marcus everything she knew, but she had never heard him play like this. There was something different about him when he played with other people, something more mature and musical. Tommy's solo was winding down. He played a few, more walking notes, and then looked at Mike. The drummer was grinning from ear to ear. He had been having fun just keeping time, but now it was his turn. Mike started with just a simple snare drum pattern. Then he added some hi-hat, then some bass, drum. Slowly, he built up a rhythm that was complex but still swung like jazz should swing. Marcus had never played behind a drum solo before either. This was completely new territory, but he kept listening and trying to support what Mike was doing. When the drums got louder, Marcus played a little louder too. When they got softer, so did he. The whole time, Tommy kept walking his bass line. Ray was standing back, listening and nodding approvingly. This was going much better than he had expected. Mike brought his solo to an end with a little flourish on the cymbals. Then he looked expectantly at Marcus. It took Marcus a moment to realize what was happening. They were looking at him. It was his turn to solo, his turn to improvise on the piano. Marcus felt his stomach flip over. He had never soloed with other people before. At home, he sometimes made up little melodies over the chord changes, but this was different. This was real. "Go ahead, son," Ray called out. "It's your turn. Just play what you feel." Marcus looked down at his hands on the keys. What did he feel? He felt scared and excited and happy and nervous all at the same time. He started with just the melody. The same melody Ray had played, but in his own way. A little slower, a little more careful. His right hand picked out the notes while his left hand played simple chords. Behind him, Tommy and Mike kept the rhythm going. It was like having a safety net. Even if he made a mistake, they would be there to catch him. As Marcus played, he started to relax a little. The melody was familiar to him. He had played it so many times at home. Gradually, he began to add little changes. A different note here, a small decoration there. The music seemed to be flowing out of him naturally. He wasn't thinking about chord changes or technique anymore. He was just playing what sounded good to him. His left hand started doing more interesting things too. Instead of just playing block chords, he began to play single notes that walked between the chords like Tommy did on the bass. Eleanor had tears in her eyes now. She could see her grandson doing something she had never quite been able to do herself. He was truly improvising, making up music in the moment. Marcus played a simple but heartfelt solo, nothing too fancy or complicated, but it was musical and it fit perfectly with what the others were doing. When he finished, he brought them back to the main melody one more time. Ray came back in with his saxophone, playing the melody along with Marcus. Together they brought the song to a gentle close. The last chord hung in the air for a moment before fading away. The room was completely quiet. Nobody moved or spoke for several seconds. Then Mike started clapping. Just slow, steady claps. Tommy joined in. Then Ray. Then Eleanor. Marcus sat at the piano, hardly believing what had just happened. He had done it. He had actually played jazz with real musicians, and it had worked. "Well," Ray said, shaking his head in amazement. "I'll be damned." "Ray," Eleanor scolded automatically. "Sorry, Mrs. Johnson," Ray said, but he was grinning. "But seriously, Marcus, that was really something." Tommy was nodding enthusiastically. "Kid's got it, he really does." Mike was still smiling from behind his drum kit. "I've played with a lot of piano players, most of them twice his age. That was as musical as any of them." Marcus felt like he might float right off the piano bench. They liked it. They actually liked his playing. "But," Ray said, and Marcus's heart skipped a beat. There was always a but. "Can you do it again?" That wasn't just luck, was it? Marcus looked at his hands, still resting on the piano keys. Could he do it again? He wasn't even sure how he had done it the first time. "I think so," he said honestly. "I'd like to try." Ray exchanged looks with Tommy and Mike. Something was passing between them. Some kind of decision was being made. "What do you think, guys?" Ray asked his bandmates. "Should we try another one?" Tommy shrugged. "I'm game if you are." Mike twirled his drumsticks. "Let's see what else this kid can do." Ray turned back to Marcus. "How about Blue Moon? You said you knew that one too." Marcus nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. In what key?" "Let's try F," Ray said. "A little different from Autumn Leaves, only think you can handle the chord changes?" Marcus thought about Blue Moon in F. It was a different progression, more challenging in some ways, but he had practiced it many times. "I can try," he said. Eleanor was watching all this with a mixture of pride and worry. Part of her was thrilled to see Marcus succeeding, but part of her was afraid he was getting in over his head. "Maybe that's enough for today," she suggested gently. "Marcus has school tomorrow." But Marcus looked at her with pleading eyes. "Please, grandmother, just one more song." Ray was studying the boy carefully. There was something special happening here, something he didn't want to stop just yet. Marcus placed his fingers on the keys for Blue Moon. This song was different from Autumn Leaves. The chord changes moved in a different pattern. It would be a real test of what he could do. "Take it slow," Ray advised. "This one's got some tricky changes in the bridge." Marcus nodded. He knew about the bridge. That was the part in the middle where the chords got more complicated. His grandmother had worked with him on it many times. "Ready when you are," Tommy said, his bass guitar balanced against his hip. Marcus took a deep breath and began. The opening. Chords of Blue Moon filled the room. F major, D minor, G minor, C7. The progression was smooth and flowing like water running over stones. But something was different this time. Marcus was more relaxed now. The first song had broken the... He wasn't as nervous or scared. His fingers moved more freely across the keys. As he played the chord progression, Marcus started adding things he had never tried before. Little bass notes with his left hand while his right hand played the chords. Gentle decorations that made the harmony richer and more interesting. Tommy came in with his bass line, but this time he was watching Marcus more carefully. He could tell the boy was doing something special. The piano part was more sophisticated than what most beginners could play. Mike joined in with his brushes, creating a soft shuffle rhythm that made the music swing. The three instruments locked together like they had been playing together for years. When Ray came in with the melody, Something magical happened. The music seemed to lift off the ground. It wasn't just four separate musicians playing anymore. It was one voice, speaking through four instruments. Marcus felt it too. The connection. The way his piano part supported and enhanced what the others were doing. He wasn't just playing chords anymore, he was having a conversation with them through music. Eleanor stood watching in amazement. She had been playing music for over 40 years, but she had rarely experienced this kind of musical chemistry. These men were actually making room for Marcus in their music, treating him like an equal. Ray's saxophone soared through the melody, but he was listening carefully to what Marcus was doing beneath him. The boy's piano playing was giving him ideas, inspiring him to try things he might not have thought of otherwise. When they reached the bridge section, Marcus didn't hesitate. These were the tricky chord changes Ray had warned him about. F major, to F7 to B flat major to B flat minor, then back to F and into the ending. Marcus played through them smoothly, his left hand walking bass lines between the chords, while his right hand added colorful notes that made each harmony sing. He was playing things he had never played before, but somehow his fingers knew what to do. How is he doing that? Mike whispered to Tommy during a quiet moment. Tommy just shook his head in wonder. He had no idea how a 12-year-old could play with such maturity and musical understanding. Ray finished his statement of the melody and looked at Marcus. Without saying a word, he gave the boy a little nod. It was Marcus's turn to solo again. This time, Marcus didn't hesitate. He dove right in, his right hand picking up the melody and immediately starting to vary it. He played the tune with feeling, bending notes and adding bluesy touches that made it his own. His left hand was doing amazing things now. Instead of just playing chords, he was playing bass lines that competed with Tommy's bass guitar. But somehow, they didn't clash. They worked together, creating a rich foundation of harmony and rhythm. As Marcus played, he closed his eyes and let the music flow through him. He could feel every note, every chord change, every beat. The music wasn't coming from his head anymore. It was coming from somewhere deeper, from his heart. He played phrases that rose and fell like conversation, sometimes gentle and sweet, sometimes bold and confident. He was telling a story with his music, painting pictures with sound. Eleanor had tears streaming down her cheeks now. This was her grandson, but it was also something more. This was music at its purest. Music being born in the moment, fresh and alive and beautiful. Ray was nodding along with Marcus's solo, his eyes closed, completely absorbed in what he was hearing. In 40 years of playing music, he had rarely heard improvisation this natural and heartfelt from someone so young. Tommy and Mike were grinning at each other over their instruments. They knew they were witnessing something special. This wasn't just a talented kid. This was a real musician, regardless of his age. Marcus built his solo to a gentle climax, playing higher notes with more intensity, then brought it back down to earth with a soft, sweet melody that resolved perfectly into the main theme. Ray came back in with his saxophone, playing the melody one final time. But now he was harmonizing with Marcus, who was playing a counter melody on the piano. Together they created something richer and more beautiful than either could have played alone. They brought the song to a close with a gentle rallentando, slowing down together as if they had rehearsed it 100 times. The final chord hung in the air like perfume, beautiful and haunting. When the last note faded away, nobody moved for a long moment. The silence was full of something precious, something rare. Then Ray slowly lowered his saxophone and looked at Marcus with new eyes. "Son," he said quietly, "where did that come from?" Marcus opened his eyes and looked around at the three men staring at him. "I don't know," he said honestly. "It just felt right." Tommy set down his bass and shook his head slowly. "Kid, I've been playing music for 25 years. I've never heard anyone improvise like that on their second song with a band." Mike was equally amazed. "It was like you've been playing with us for months. How did you know exactly what to play?" Marcus shrugged, suddenly feeling shy again. "I listened to what you were doing and tried to fit in. But it was more than that. Ray said. You weren't just fitting in, you were contributing. You were adding something to the music that wasn't there before. Eleanor finally found her voice. Marcus, she said softly, that was beautiful, honey. I had no idea you could play like that. Marcus turned to look at his grandmother. Really? You're not just saying that? I would never lie to you about music, Eleanor said firmly. That was the most musical thing I've ever heard you play. Maybe the most musical thing I've ever heard anyone play. Ray was pacing now, thinking hard. His mind was racing with possibilities. Marcus, he said suddenly. What are you doing Saturday night? Marcus looked confused. Saturday? Nothing, I guess. Homework, maybe. Homework can wait, Ray said decisively. How would you like to play with us at the festival? The room went completely silent. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. You mean it? He whispered. I mean it, Ray said. But I need to ask your grandmother first. Mrs. Johnson, would you be comfortable with Marcus playing a public performance with us? Eleanor looked stunned. I don't know what to say. Are you serious? You really want him to play with you? Tommy jumped in. Mrs. Johnson, what we just heard was special, really special. It would be wrong not to share it with people. Mike nodded enthusiastically. The kid's got more soul than musicians twice his age. He belongs on that stage. Eleanor looked at Marcus, who was practically bouncing on the piano bench with excitement. It's a real performance? She asked. With an audience? About 200 people, Ray said. Maybe more. It's the Summer Jazz Festival. We're the opening act. Eleanor felt overwhelmed. 2 hours ago, Marcus had been just her grandson who liked to practice piano. Now these professional musicians were asking him to perform with them. I need to think about this, she said slowly. Of course, Ray said. But Mrs. Johnson, I want you to know something. I've been playing music professionally for 40 years. I've played with a lot of people. What your grandson just did, that's not something you can teach. That comes from inside, from the soul. Marcus was looking back and forth between his grandmother and Ray, hardly daring to breathe. He's really that good? Eleanor asked. He's that good, all three men said at the same time. Eleanor looked at Marcus one more time. She saw the hope and excitement in his eyes. She thought about all the hours he spent practicing on that old keyboard. All the dreams he had shared with her about making music with other people. Well, she said finally, I suppose it couldn't hurt to try. Marcus jumped up from the piano bench and hugged his grandmother so hard he nearly knocked her over. Thank you, thank you, thank you, he said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. Ray was grinning from ear to ear. All right then. Looks like we've got ourselves a piano player. Tommy picked up his bass again. Should we run through a few more songs? If we're going to do this, we better be ready. Mike twirled his drumsticks. I'm up for it if the kid is. Marcus practically ran back to the piano. I'm ready. What song should we play next? Ray laughed. Slow down there, Tiger. We've got all week to rehearse. But yes, let's try one more. How about Summertime? Marcus's eyes lit up. I love that song. As he put his hands back on the keys, Marcus felt like he was in a dream, the best dream of his life. In the space of one evening, everything had changed. He wasn't just a kid who played piano anymore, he was a musician. After they finished playing Summertime, the musicians decided to take a break. Ray wanted to know more about Marcus and his musical background. They all sat on the edge of the stage while Eleanor brought them water from the cooler upstairs. So, Marcus, Ray said, tell us more about how you learned to play like that. Your grandmother taught you everything? Marcus swung his legs from the stage and nodded. She's been teaching me since I was little, but she says I picked it up really fast, faster than most kids. What got you started? Tommy asked. Most kids want to play video games, not piano. Marcus thought about how to explain it. My mom was getting ready to deploy. That's when she goes overseas with the army. I was really sad about her leaving. I cried a lot. Eleanor had come back with the water and heard the last part. He was heartbroken, she said softly. 6 years old and his mama was going away for a whole year. That must have been really hard, Mike said gently. Marcus nodded. I didn't understand why she had to go. I thought maybe I did something wrong. Eleanor sat down next to her grandson and put her arm around him. So I thought music might help him feel better, give him something to focus on while his mama was away. Did it help? Ray asked. Marcus smiled a little. Yeah. When I played piano, I didn't think about missing Mom so much. And grandmother said I could play songs for her when she came back. Your mom likes music too? Tommy wanted to know. She loves it, Marcus said, his face lighting up. She sings sometimes, not professionally or anything, but she has a really pretty voice. She used to sing me to sleep when I was little. Eleanor smiled at the memory. Sarah has a beautiful voice. She gets that from her father. My son could sing like an angel. Where is he now? Mike asked. Eleanor's face grew sad. He passed away when Sarah was 18. Car accident. That's when she decided to join the army. Said she wanted to serve her country like her daddy would have wanted. The room grew quiet for a moment. Everyone was thinking about this family that had been through so much. So it's just you and your grandmother when your mom's deployed? Ray asked Marcus. Yes, sir. But grandmother takes good care of me. And she knows everything about music. Tell them about your musical background, Eleanor, Ray said. Marcus mentioned you played with some famous people. Eleanor looked embarrassed. That was a long time ago. I don't like to brag. It's not bragging if it's true, Tommy said encouragingly. Eleanor sighed and settled back against the stage wall. Well, I started playing piano when I was about Marcus's age. My mama worked for a wealthy family and they let me practice on their piano sometimes. You didn't have your own piano? Mike asked. Heavens no, Eleanor laughed. We were poor as church mice, but Mrs. Henderson, that was the lady my mama worked for. She heard me playing one day and offered to pay for lessons. Marcus had heard this story before, but he loved hearing it again. Tell them about Mr. Peterson, he urged. Eleanor smiled. Mrs. Henderson found me a teacher, an old jazz musician named Claude Peterson. Not related to Oscar Peterson, but he could play almost as well. I've heard that name, Ray said, impressed. Claude Peterson was legendary around here back in the day. He was something special, Eleanor agreed. He taught me not just how to play the notes, but how to feel the music, how to make it say something. Is that what you teach Marcus? Tommy asked. I try to, Eleanor said. But Marcus has something I never had, a natural understanding of music. Claude used to say some people are born with music in their blood. I think Marcus is one of those people. Marcus felt proud hearing his grandmother say that. But he was also curious about her playing days. Tell them about playing with Etta James, he said. Eleanor's eyes got a faraway look. That was 1967. I was 22 years old and scared to death. I had been playing in small clubs around town, mostly gospel and blues. Then one night, Etta James came through on tour. How did you end up playing with her? Ray asked. He was genuinely interested. Now, her piano player got sick right before the show. Food poisoning, I think. The club owner knew I could play, so he asked if I could fill in. I almost said no. But you did it, Mike said. I did it. Shaking like a leaf, but I did it. Etta was so kind to me. She could see how nervous I was. She told me to just listen to her voice and follow her lead. What was it like? Marcus asked. He had heard this story many times, but he never got tired of it. Magical, Eleanor said simply. When Etta started singing, everything else disappeared. The crowd, my nerves, everything. There was just the music, and somehow I knew exactly what to play behind her voice. Ray nodded knowingly. That's what real music does. It takes you somewhere else. Exactly, Eleanor said. After the show, Etta hugged me and said I had good hands. She said I played from the heart, not just from the fingers. Do you still have the poster Marcus mentioned? Tommy asked. Marcus jumped up excitedly. I'll show you. He ran over to where Eleanor kept her purse and pulled out her phone. "Grandmother, show them the picture of the poster." Eleanor scrolled through her photos until she found the one Marcus wanted. She passed the phone around to the men. The poster showed Etta James in a beautiful dress, with smaller text listing the other performers, including Eleanor Johnson on piano. "That's amazing," Mike said, studying the photo. "You should frame this." "It is framed," Eleanor laughed. "This is just a picture of it. The real poster hangs in our kitchen." "So you kept playing professionally after that?" Ray asked. Eleanor shook her head. "Not really. I got married a year later and had my son. Back then it was hard for a woman to have a music career and a family. I played in church and at local events, but nothing big." "Do you ever regret it?" Tommy asked gently. Eleanor looked at Marcus, who was back to sitting beside her. "How could I regret it? If I had kept touring, I never would have taught Marcus, and look what he can do." Marcus leaned against his grandmother. "She's the best teacher ever. She knows everything." "I don't know everything," Eleanor protested, "but I know enough to recognize real talent when I see it." Ray was thinking about something. "Eleanor, how did you teach Marcus to improvise? That's usually the hardest part for students." "I didn't really teach him that," Eleanor said, sounding surprised herself. "I showed him chord progressions and basic techniques, but the improvising, that just came naturally to him." "Really?" Mike asked. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "She would play a chord progression and I would just hear melodies in my head, so I started playing them. Even when he was little," Eleanor added, "he would take simple songs and change them. Make them more interesting. I never taught him to do that." Tommy shook his head in amazement. "That's not normal, you know. Most people have to work for years to learn to improvise." "That's what I keep telling him," Eleanor said. "He has a gift." Ray was looking at Marcus with new understanding. "How often do you practice?" "Every day," Marcus said. "For at least 2 hours, sometimes more on weekends." "What do you practice?" Mike asked. "Scales and exercises first, then songs." "I try to learn new songs from listening to recordings, and I practice improvising over chord progressions." "He listens to everything," Eleanor added. "Jazz, blues, gospel, classical. He soaks it all up like a sponge." "Who are your favorite piano players?" Ray asked. Marcus's eyes lit up. "Oscar Peterson is amazing. And Bill Evans. And Herbie Hancock. Oh, and Keith Jarrett. His Cone concert album is incredible." The three men exchanged surprised looks. These were sophisticated choices for a 12-year-old. "You listen to Keith Jarrett?" Tommy asked, impressed. "Grandmother has all his albums." "Well, most of them. The Cone concert is my favorite, but I also like his Standards Trio albums." Ray was shaking his head in disbelief. "Most kids your age don't even know who Keith Jarrett is." "Most kids don't have grandmothers like mine," Marcus said, hugging Eleanor's arm. Eleanor looked at the men seriously. "I want you to understand something. Marcus doesn't just play music, he lives it, it's who he is. When his mother comes home at Christmas, the first thing he's going to do is play for her. He's been learning her favorite songs." "What songs?" Mike asked. "The Way You Look Tonight and Fly Me to the Moon," Marcus said. "She loves old standards. She says they remind her of movies from when she was young." Ray stood up and stretched. "Well, this explains a lot. Marcus, you've had better musical education than most college students, and Eleanor, you've done an amazing job with him." Eleanor smiled proudly. "He makes it easy. He wants to learn everything." "Speaking of learning," Tommy said, "what are we going to do about Saturday? We've got 5 days to get ready." Marcus jumped up again. "Can we practice every day, please?" Ray laughed. "I think we can arrange that, but you've got school, right?" "School ends at 3:30, Marcus said quickly. "I could be here by 4 o'clock every day." Eleanor looked concerned. "That's a lot of practicing. You still have homework to do." "I'll do my homework first," Marcus promised. "I'll do it really fast." "We don't need to practice for hours every day," Ray assured Eleanor. "Maybe an hour each afternoon." just to get comfortable playing together. Eleanor considered this. I suppose that would be okay, as long as his grades don't suffer. They won't, Marcus said eagerly. I promise. Looking at her grandson's excited face, Eleanor couldn't help but smile. She remembered feeling that same excitement when she was young and music was opening up new worlds for her. The next 4 days passed in a blur of excitement and hard work. Every afternoon, Marcus rushed from school to the community center. He would burst through the doors at exactly 4 o'clock, his backpack flying behind him, ready to practice. The first rehearsal on Wednesday had been a little rough. Marcus was nervous again, and it showed in his playing. His timing was off, and he kept making small mistakes. But Ray was patient with him. Relax, son, Ray had said gently. You're trying too hard. Just breathe and let the music flow like you did on Tuesday. By Thursday, Marcus was feeling more comfortable. They worked on 4 songs: Autumn Leaves, Blue Moon, Summertime, and All of Me. Marcus knew all of them, but playing them with the band was different from playing them alone. Remember, Tommy told him during a break, we're having a conversation. Sometimes you talk, sometimes you listen. Don't try to play all the time. Friday's rehearsal was the best yet. Marcus was starting to understand his role in the band. He learned when to play full chords and when to play just single notes. He learned when to be quiet and let the other instruments shine. Much better, Mike said after they finished All of Me. You're really starting to sound like part of the band. But Saturday morning brought new fears. Marcus woke up with butterflies in his stomach. In just 8 hours, he would be on stage in front of hundreds of people. What if he froze up? What if he forgot the chord changes? What if he embarrassed himself and his grandmother? Eleanor made him his favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries. But Marcus could barely eat. I'm scared, grandmother, he admitted, pushing the food around on his plate. Eleanor sat down across from him. That's normal, honey. I was terrified before I played with Etta James, but you know what she told me? What? She said the butterflies mean you care. They mean it matters to you. If you weren't nervous, it would mean you didn't care about doing your best. Marcus considered this. Did the butterflies go away when you started playing? As soon as I heard her voice and felt the music, everything else disappeared. It will be the same for you tonight. Eleanor was right, but Marcus still felt sick to his stomach. He spent the morning practicing on his old keyboard, running through the songs over and over, but the broken keys and tinny sound just made him more worried. At 2 o'clock, Ray called to check on him. How are you feeling, son? Ray asked. Nervous, Marcus admitted. Ray chuckled. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. Listen, we're going to do a quick sound check at 5 o'clock. Then the show starts at 7. We go on at 7:30. 7:30, Marcus repeated, his voice small. Marcus, Ray said seriously, I want you to remember something. You earned this spot. We didn't invite you because we felt sorry for you, or because you're young. We invited you because you're good, really good. But what if I mess up? Then you mess up. It happens to all of us. The important thing is to keep playing. The music doesn't stop because of one mistake. After he hung up the phone, Marcus felt a little better. Ray believed in him. That had to count for something. At 4:30, Eleanor helped Marcus get ready. She had bought him a new white shirt and black pants for the performance. He looked older in the outfit, more professional. You look very handsome, Eleanor said, adjusting his collar. Very much like a real musician. I am a real musician, Marcus said, surprising himself with how confident he sounded. Eleanor smiled. Yes, you are. They arrived at the festival grounds at 5 o'clock. Marcus had never seen so many people in one place. The park was full of families with blankets and folding chairs. Food trucks lined the streets. A big stage had been set up, with professional lights and sound equipment. Marcus felt his stomach flip again. All these people would be watching him play. Deep breaths, Eleanor reminded him. They found Ray, Tommy, and Mike near the stage. The men were setting up their instruments and talking to the sound technicians. There he is, Tommy called out when he saw Marcus. Our piano man. Marcus walked over to the stage, looking up at the large black grand piano that sat in the center. It was much bigger than the piano at the community center. More intimidating. "Beautiful instrument," Ray said, following Marcus's gaze. "It's a Steinway, one of the best pianos in the world." Marcus felt a thrill run through him. He was going to play a Steinway grand piano, in front of hundreds of people. "Can I try it?" he asked. "That's what sound check is for," Mike said with a grin. The sound technician called them onto the stage. "Let's get levels on everybody," he said into his headset. Marcus climbed the steps to the stage. From up there, he could see the whole park. People were already starting to gather, spreading out blankets and setting up chairs. His mouth went dry. "Don't look at the audience yet," Ray advised quietly. "Focus on the piano." Marcus sat down at the bench and adjusted it to the right height. The piano was beautiful up close. The keys were perfect, white and black in precise rows. He touched one key gently, and the note rang out clear and true through the sound system. "Play something," the sound technician said. "We need to set your levels." Marcus put his hands on the keys and started playing Autumn Leaves. The sound was incredible, rich and full and powerful. Every note was perfect. Playing this piano was like driving a race car after being used to a bicycle. "Sounds great," the technician said. "Tommy, you're next." They ran through the sound check quickly. Each instrument sounded amazing through the professional sound system. When they played, a bit of Blue Moon together, Marcus felt his confidence returning. They sounded good. Really good. "Excellent," Ray said as they finished. "We're ready." They had an hour before the show started. Marcus tried to eat the sandwich Eleanor had brought him, but his stomach was still doing flips. "Try to drink some water," she urged. "You don't want to get dehydrated up there." At 7 o'clock, the festival officially began. The mayor gave a short speech welcoming everyone. Marcus watched from the side of the stage as the crowd grew larger and larger. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed across the park. "Please welcome our first act of the evening, the Ray Williams Jazz Quartet." Marcus's heart jumped. They were calling it a quartet now. That included him. "This is it," Ray said, appearing beside Marcus. "You ready?" Marcus took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready." "Remember," Tommy said, "just have fun up there. Enjoy the music. And smile," Mike added. "The audience wants to see you having a good time." Ray led them onto the stage. The crowd applauded politely as they took their positions. Marcus sat down at the piano bench and adjusted the microphone that would pick up his playing. From the stage, the audience looked enormous. Hundreds of faces looking up at them expectantly. Marcus felt dizzy for a moment. Then Ray stepped up to his microphone. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the park. "We're the Ray Williams Jazz Quartet and we're excited to play for you tonight." The crowd applauded again, louder this time. "Before we start," Ray continued, "I want to tell you about our piano player. This is Marcus Johnson and he's 12 years old." A murmur went through the crowd. Marcus felt his face get hot. "Now I know what you're thinking," Ray said with a smile. "A 12-year-old playing jazz? But let me tell you something. This young man has more musical soul than musicians twice his age. He's going to surprise you tonight." The applause was warmer now. Marcus could see people leaning forward in their chairs, curious to hear what he could do. "Our first song is Autumn Leaves," Ray announced. "Here we go." Ray counted them in with a nod. Marcus put his hands on the keys and played the opening chord. The sound rang out across the park, clear and beautiful. And just like that, all his nervousness disappeared. The music took over. Marcus felt himself settling into the groove with Tommy and Mike. When Ray's saxophone sang the melody, Marcus played the perfect accompaniment. He wasn't thinking about the audience anymore. He wasn't thinking about anything except the music. When it came time for his solo, Marcus closed his eyes and let his fingers find their own way across the keys. He played with feeling and confidence, telling his story through the music. The crowd was silent, listening intently. This wasn't what they had expected from a 12-year-old boy. When the song ended, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Marcus opened his eyes and saw people standing up, clapping hard. Some were shaking their heads in amazement. Ray grinned and leaned into his microphone. I told you he was something special. The next 3 songs went by in a dream. Marcus played, better than he ever had before. The big piano responded to his every touch. The sound system made every note crystal clear, and the band was tight, locked together like they had been playing together for years. During his solo on Summertime, Marcus felt something magical happen. He stopped being conscious of playing the piano. The music was just flowing through him, from his heart through his fingers to the keys. He was completely lost in the sound. When they finished their set with All of Me, the entire crowd rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous. People were cheering and whistling. Marcus couldn't believe it was for him. Ray put his arm around Marcus's shoulders and brought him forward to the front of the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Ray said over the applause, Marcus Johnson. Marcus took a little bow like his grandmother had taught him. The cheering got even louder. Marcus could hardly catch his breath as people crowded around him after the performance. Adults he had never met were shaking his hand and telling him how amazing he was. Children his own age were staring at him with wide eyes like he was some kind of superhero. That was incredible, young man, said a woman with a camera around her neck. I'm from the local newspaper. Could I ask you a few questions? Marcus looked at his grandmother, who nodded encouragingly. How long have you been playing piano? The reporter asked. 6 years, Marcus said, still feeling a little overwhelmed by all the attention. And how long have you been playing jazz? Marcus thought about it. I guess about 3 years. My grandmother taught me. The reporter turned to Eleanor. You must be very proud. More than proud, Eleanor said, her arm around Marcus's shoulders. I'm amazed. I knew he was talented, but tonight he showed everyone what real music sounds like. Ray appeared beside them, still carrying his saxophone case. Excuse me, he said to the reporter, but I'd like to say something about Marcus. The woman held up her recorder eagerly. I've been playing professionally for 40 years, Ray said. I've played with some very talented musicians, but what Marcus did tonight was special. Not just because he's young, but because he plays from the heart. That's something you can't teach. Will he be playing with your band again? The reporter asked. Ray looked at Marcus with a big smile. If he wants to, he's got a permanent spot. We're not the Ray Williams Trio anymore, we're the Ray Williams Quartet, and Marcus is a full member. Marcus felt his heart jump. Really? You mean it? I mean it, Ray said firmly. If your grandmother agrees, of course. Eleanor looked at Marcus's hopeful face. I think we can work something out. More people wanted to talk to Marcus. A music teacher from the local high school asked if Marcus might be interested in playing with their jazz ensemble. A man who owned a music store offered to let Marcus try out different pianos. A family with a daughter about Marcus's age asked if he gave lessons. I don't know how to teach, Marcus said honestly. You could learn, the father said. My daughter has been taking lessons for 2 years, but she's not enjoying it. Maybe learning from someone closer to her age would help. Eleanor took note of the man's phone number. Extra money from teaching would help their family, and it might be good for Marcus to share his knowledge with other young musicians. As the evening went on, Marcus started to realize that everything had changed. This morning, he had been just another kid. Tonight, people were calling him a musician. A real musician. Tommy and Mike came over to congratulate him again. Kid, you killed it up there, Tommy said, ruffling Marcus's hair. I've never seen a crowd react like that to a 12-year-old. The best part was watching your face while you played, Mike added. You were completely lost in the music. That's what real musicians look like when they're in the zone. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, tugged on Marcus's shirt. Excuse me, she said shyly. Are you famous? Marcus looked down at her and smiled. No, I'm just a kid who likes to play piano. But you're really good, she said. Better than the music teacher at my school. Thank you, Marcus said. Do you play piano too? She nodded. A little bit, but I'm not very good. Keep practicing, Marcus told her. That's the most important thing. Practice every day, even if it's just for a little while. Will you be on TV? She asked. Marcus laughed. I don't think so, but maybe I'll play here again next year. The girl's mother smiled and led her away, but not before taking a picture of her daughter with Marcus. As the crowd began to thin out, Eleanor suggested they head home. It had been a long day and Marcus had school on Monday. Before we go, Ray said, let's talk about what happens next. Marcus, are you serious about wanting to keep playing with us? More than anything, Marcus said without hesitation. Good, here's what I'm thinking. We play gigs maybe once or twice a month, sometimes on weekends, sometimes on weeknights. Nothing that would interfere with school, but regular enough to keep improving. Eleanor considered this. What kind of venues? Jazz clubs, festivals like this one, private parties sometimes, nothing inappropriate for a young person. And Eleanor, you're always welcome to come along. In fact, I'd prefer it. Could I really keep playing with you? Marcus asked. Even when I get older? Ray smiled. Son, if you keep developing the way you are now, you could have a real future in music. College scholarships, professional opportunities, the whole thing. Marcus felt overwhelmed again. 6 hours ago, his biggest worry had been not messing up in front of a crowd. Now people were talking about his future, about college scholarships, about being a professional musician. Let's take it one step at a time, Eleanor said wisely. Tonight was wonderful, but Marcus is still a child. School comes first, then music. Absolutely, Ray agreed. Education is important. But Mrs. Johnson, I hope you'll consider what happened tonight. Marcus has a gift. It would be a shame not to nurture it. As they walked back to Eleanor's car, Marcus felt different. Not just happy or excited, but changed somehow. Like he had discovered something important about himself. Grandmother, he said as they drove home, do you really think I could be a professional musician someday? Eleanor was quiet for a moment, thinking about her answer carefully. I think you could be anything you want to be, she said finally. But Marcus, being a professional musician is hard work. It's not just about playing pretty music. It's about discipline and dedication and never giving up even when things get difficult. I know, Marcus said, but I love it so much. When I was playing tonight, it didn't feel like work. It felt like I was doing what I was meant to do. Eleanor smiled in the darkness of the car. That's exactly how I felt when I played with Etta James, like I was in the right place at the right time, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Do you think Mom will be proud when she hears about tonight? Oh, honey, Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion. She's going to be so proud she'll probably cry. And when she gets home at Christmas and hears you play, she's going to know that her little boy has grown up to be something very special. When they got home, Marcus was too excited to sleep. He sat at his old keyboard and played through all the songs from the evening. Even on the broken keys, he could still hear the magic of what had happened on that stage. Eleanor made them both hot chocolate and sat beside him on the piano bench. Tell me what it felt like up there, she said. Marcus thought about how to describe it. At first I was scared, really scared, but when we started playing, everything else went away. It was just the music, and I felt like I belonged there. You did belong there, Eleanor said firmly. Did you see the way Ray and the others looked at you? They weren't just being nice to a kid. They were treating you like an equal, like a real member of the band. It's the best feeling I've ever had, Marcus said. Even better than Christmas or my birthday. Eleanor hugged him close. That's how you know you've found your calling. When something makes you feel that complete and happy, that's what you're meant to do with your life. The next morning, Marcus woke up wondering if it had all been a dream. But when he came downstairs for breakfast, Eleanor was on the phone with Ray, talking about their next rehearsal. Tuesday at 4 o'clock, she said, hanging up the phone. Ray wants to work on some new songs. New songs? Marcus asked excitedly. He thinks you're ready for more challenging material, jazz standards that are a little more complex. Marcus felt a thrill of anticipation. More challenging songs meant he would keep learning and growing as a musician. At school that Monday, word had already spread about Marcus's performance. The newspaper article came out that morning, with a big picture of Marcus at the piano, and the headline, 12-year-old, Jazz Sensation wows festival crowd. Kids who had never talked to him before were coming up to ask about his playing. Teachers were congratulating him in the hallways. The principal asked him to play at the next school assembly. But the best moment came when Marcus got home and found a package waiting for him. Inside was a small trophy with a note from the festival organizers. It read, "To Marcus Johnson, outstanding young musician, with thanks for a memorable performance." Eleanor helped him find the perfect spot for it on the piano at home. "The first of many, I suspect," she said with a smile. That evening, as Marcus practiced for his upcoming rehearsal with the band, he thought about how much his life had changed in just 1 week. 7 days ago, he had been too shy to even approach Ray and ask to play. Tonight, he was a member of a real jazz quartet with his own trophy and his picture in the newspaper. But more than any of that, he had discovered something about himself. He wasn't just a kid who liked to play piano. He was a musician. A real musician with something important to say through his music. As his fingers moved across the keys of his old keyboard, Marcus smiled. This was just the beginning. He had found his voice, and he was ready to share it with the world. The scared little boy who had walked up to the stage 5 days ago was gone. In his place sat a confident young musician who knew exactly who he was meant to be. And that transformation, more than any applause or trophy or newspaper article, was the real magic of what had happened when a 12-year-old boy asked a band to let him play piano.